It's TA with MK. It's TA with MK. Gents and ladies, no time to waste. Don't be afraid, it's time to trade. Let's start your brains like high-speed trains. Storm these games like hurricanes. It's time to save this herd this days. Put on your cape and learn the phrase. It's TA with MK. It's TA with MK.
You ever just wake up and feel like you got run into by a truck?
Chinga tu puta madre. Chinga tu puta madre.
You know, I don't know if I have the Rona.
No! God, please, no! No!
The Jonah.
Joe, how you feeling? Kevin's sorry.
The Fiona. Am I looking a bit green or is it just me? Either way, let's just say I won't be playing anything like hopscotch anytime soon. That being said, the show must go on, so we're going to dive into a couple of the charts I'm watching over the next day or two. If you're liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and let's go. The first one I want to talk about is the SPX, or the S&P 500. We talked about this a few days ago, potentially that after it broke out, that it could come up here and meet my red zone of resistance, or some of these moving averages would be overhead resistance. And it looks like today's close did just that. We had 1, 2, 3, 4 green candles in a row, and then we met this little resistance here with the 200 simple, which is my yellow moving average on the daily. I mentioned there was the possibility that we could pull back to retest this trend line, maybe even this green level support down here that I have indicated with this box, or we could consolidate below resistance. So we'll just have to wait and see tomorrow kind of how the market reacts. The candle did close red. It has a little more of a wick on the bottom than the top, but more or less that just means there's indecision in the market. API 3 I just got an alert for. That's one I was actually going to talk about here in a bit, so that's just kind of strange that happened right while I was recording. But we'll be keeping an eye on SPX. Like I said, what would make the most sense to me would be a small pullback. I've even drawn this potential. It only has a couple touches on each side, but we could form this little rising channel, or maybe we come all the way back down, and test here. That would be still bullish as long as we can put in a higher low. So we had this low, this higher low. So what we're looking for is just something that's a higher low, whether it's the top of the green box, bottom of the green box, or option 2 would be, like I said, we just consolidate below this resistance, and then break out at some point later this week. And now we're on the Bitcoin daily chart. Not a whole lot happening here. It's at this resistance zone that I have marked in red. It hit the top of it at around 42,200, and it's just kind of consolidating right now. We know that Bitcoin is highly correlated with the SPX and the traditional stocks now, so I think we kind of have to wait till tomorrow to see what the stock market does, how they react to being at resistance. I'm assuming if they have some bit of a pullback, Bitcoin's going to follow with something similar. Now, what would that look like for Bitcoin? Well, what I would expect would be something either back down here to the point of control maybe, which is around 39,000. Let's say we go all the way to this potential trend line that's been forming for some time, 38,500. Something like that would make sense. We may not get that big of a pullback if the S&P 500 doesn't pull back a decent amount. But if we do, that would represent a good opportunity to open some more positions on altcoins, because as long as we can put in a higher low, because we've had this low back here, low. We've just been putting in a series of higher lows, which is bullish. So any pullback to me just represents a buying opportunity as long as we don't lose support and come back down here somewhere. Obviously, that would be different. If we lose this support, bearish retest it and start heading back this way, then that represents a whole different conversation where maybe we're looking at shorting some coins. But for the time being, I'm just looking for opportunities as Bitcoin pulls back to open up new positions, and so we'll talk about that next. Before we dive into some of the altcoins I'm watching, I want to quickly cover the Bitcoin dominance chart. This is the 4-hour chart that I bring up every day on my channel. We were tracking this large rising channel it was in. It broke down finally here on the 18th or so, bearishly retested. Now it's just in this falling wedge. Now keep in mind that the measured move, which I indicated on this chart, is down here at around 41.5%, but it doesn't mean it's going to go straight down to that. I mean, it could, but if even in this rising channel you had a series of falling wedges, rising channels, falling wedges, price action doesn't just go straight one direction. Even if it is in a general uptrend or a general downtrend, it's going to have moves to the upside. It's going to have what we call impulse waves. Impulse wave up, impulse wave down, impulse wave up, impulse wave down. So even though this has broken down and we're looking for it to potentially hit this measured target down here at 41.5%, and then maybe at that point even lose that support, we get even bigger altcoin season. What could happen in the short term could be that this breaks, to the upside, because this little small falling wedge has a 68% chance of breaking to the upside. So something like that wouldn't make would make sense to me that it could move up here somewhere, you know, kind of retest this. That could then make a double top at this zone of resistance. And then at that point, maybe we do trend lower at that point. What we're looking for mostly, just like we were here, this was a series of high, higher high, higher high, right? Now that we've broken down, we're just looking for lows, and lower highs. So if this ends up being this, you know, short-term low, and we break up here at some point, we'd just be looking for either a lower high than this one here, or maybe a double top like I mentioned, and then we'd hope for the next wave down to be even lower than this one. So right now, anytime Bitcoin is, you know, Bitcoin dominance is trending down, that represents good altcoin trading. So if we do get a small wave higher out of this, you'll just look for it to meet resistance, and then that would, you know, represent a good opportunity or, you know, good time to add to some of your altcoin positions. We'll start out by quickly bringing up a coin I've brought up quite a bit in the past. This is EGLD or LROM. We had mentioned that we were looking for, first we mentioned anyway, we were looking for a break of this downtrend line. We got that. Then we were looking for either a pullback back down here, you know, around 140, or a break and retest of around 160. I mentioned that at 160.64, I got my entry on that break slash retest there. And so right now we're just kind of riding it up to this next resistance. If BTC, you know, cooperates, I'd be looking to take some of my profits up here around, you know, 180. And then at that point, we'll just kind of wait and see, can it break through this next level of resistance, you know, retest and head higher. Obviously, Bitcoin will determine that. But for the time being, Elron is moving along nicely. Next up, we've got BPRO, BEPRO. This is a coin I brought up, I believe, in my last video. We were looking for it to break this trend line. Now, it's had this large, you know, level of support back here where it put in a small bottom and then went on a run. And then just recently with this trend line, it was doing kind of the same thing. Put in another little double bottom, which, you know, zoomed way out. This is a large double bottom. So what we're looking for is a break of this resistance, which it looks to be moving through, you know, kind of today. And now what you'd be looking for entry is either a pullback to, you know, this level here. Let's see, what's that around? 31-ish, I guess just under 32. Another option would be this green box I've indicated down here. This would be your best entry. If Bitcoin has a little bit of a hiccup or pulls back, you know, over the next day or two with the SPX, I'd be looking for it to come back down here to around 28, so 0.0028. That would be your best entry. That would still represent, you know, a low, a higher low, and an even higher low, so it would still be bullish. This is not really a valid trend line, but I'm just kind of watching it as an area. This is also the point of control, which is this red line, so that would also make sense for it to come back and test that before pushing higher. Otherwise, your next best entry is to wait for it to break above and retest this next zone up at around 35, and then you could ride it up to this red zone, you know, at around 42 before you take profits. So we'll keep an eye on BPRO. And then next up, I wanted to give a quick update on Tower. This is the metaverse gaming coin that I've mentioned a couple of times over the last few videos. We've been tracking it in this downward trend line that it just recently broke above, retested. So from a bullish standpoint, this is exactly what you're looking for entry. And if you can get one more pullback down here to around 0.01875 or 0.019, so 0.019, something like that would represent a good entry. They'd be back here at the strongest level of support. And it would make sense for it to pull back to that area if Bitcoin, you know, once again has a little hiccup or anything. Otherwise, what I would be looking for as an aggressive entry would be a break of this next zone up at about 0.0215. You know, retested, that's a good entry. Or if you want a really safe entry, you have this area back here where it was strong support, and recently, you know, strong resistance. You could also wait. You'll just miss some of the move, but you could wait for a break of 0.024, wait for it to flip that as support. That would also get it above these 50 moving averages, which is the pink and the red. And then you could ride that all the way up here to like almost 35. And the final coin I wanted to go over is API3. Now, I believe this is a Web 3.0 coin. There's not a lot of hype right now on the Web 3.0 coins. Right now, we're kind of in more of a metaverse trend, I would say. But we know the privacy coins had a pump recently. Web 3.0 is going to have its turn. This coin's just from a price action or TA analysis perspective, it's been looking good for a while. It had this downward trend line. Now, it did break out of this, and it wasn't able to put in a higher low. But I've been tracking it because at this point, it put in this bottom at the, you know, support level down here indicated in green. And then it was able to put in another bottom at that same level, so what we call a double bottom, right? And then this high up here was higher than this last high. So that's a good start to an uptrend, right? Now what you're kind of looking for, in which it recently, you know, put in a low, higher low, and another higher low. So best entry at this point would be anything where you can get a pullback to around like, anywhere I would say between like 460 and 470. Anywhere in there would represent a good buying area. Otherwise, what you're looking for is a break of this overhead resistance at just over $5. Flip that as support, and you can ride that up here, hopefully for another high, somewhere up in the 550 range. Once again, you never want to go in all at once, but that would represent a couple of good DCA areas. We'll give you a better update and analysis on this coin tomorrow. I just wanted to put it on your radar. This coin's just looked bullish for some time, and it's starting to look like it's reversing trend to the upside. That's all, folks. Thank you for joining me on TA with MK. My name is McKay. If you're liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow. It's TA.